For Apocalyptic Shadow 3.2, we got the big blue bug back again, who was also the Apocalyptic Shadow boss in 3.0. And for the second node, we got Fulminating Wolflord, aka Hoolay. But let's start with resurfacing our memories with the big blue bug on what his mechanics were. So let's start with the thing that stands out the most, and that is these tags on the big bug. Why does he have these tags? Well, he has these tags to give it to the small bugs. That's the whole reason why the big bug has the stacks, so you can distribute it to the smaller bugs. Okay, then the question arises, why do the small bugs want these stacks to begin with? The first reason why these small bugs want these stacks is, first of all, that it increases their attack for each stack they have. The second reason why these small bugs want these stacks is that if they have, let's say this bug has 3, then that bug gets a special bonus ability. For this type of bug, the purple one, there are 2 small bug types. For this specific one, when he has 3, he will have a chance to entangle you when he attacks you. Normally this small bug's attacks are just normal attacks, nothing special. But when he has 3 stacks, he gets this bonus ability where he can now entangle you. And then we got also another type of bug which is summoned in the second phase of the big bug. And that is these bugs. And let's call them exploding bugs. So when these bugs have 3 stacks, then he will get another turn immediately. And why is this extra turn he gets bad for us? Well, the first turn this bug gets, he will go into charging mode, and then his next turn he will explode on you, and he will explode on 3 allies of yours. So it's a blast attack, which has a chance to outrage the hit allies, which means that outraged ally will attack a random enemy for 2 turns. So that's why this extra turn for this type of bug is bad. So you need to make sure you have a cleanser in your team if he explodes on you and any of your allies get outraged. So you can cleanse immediately. But when the purple bug entangles you when he has 3 stacks and he entangles an important ally of yours, then I just recommend you to restart. Because when you get entangled, your action is delayed. Even if you cleanse that entanglement, your action would have already been delayed. And you cannot do anything for 1 whole turn. Sure, you can cleanse it, you can do something again, but still action delayed. And if your DPS or sub DPS to action got delayed, the damage would have already been done. But not if I had, let's say, the action forward of Mem available, then it wouldn't have been really such a big deal. So I cleansed the entanglement of Big Herta and afford that. And small bug's not only one who can entangle you, the big bug also has an ability that can entangle you, which is a single target attack. And that's the only really irritating, noteworthy attack of the big bug. His other attacks are nothing that hindering for you. But okay, now we know the reason why the big bug has these stacks is to give them to the small bugs so their attack gets increased or they get this bonus ability. How does he distribute these stacks to the small bugs to begin with? Well, the main way is when he is glowing red, like this, as you can see. When you see him glowing red, then remember that he will distribute his stacks to the small bugs when his turn starts. That's it. That's the main way. There's also another way the small bugs get stacks, and that is just after every couple of small bug summons. A small bug summons with 1 stack. Just like this one. This one just got summoned with a stack already on his head. But all you need to know is, oh, I see the big bug glowing red. That means he will distribute stacks to the small bugs. So what can we do then to stop him from distributing these stacks? When does he get them? How can we reduce it? Well, he gets these stacks, the big bug, at the end of his turn. In the first phase, he gets 4 stacks, so when he has 2 of the red glowing things here. In the second phase, he can enter into a state where he locks his toughness and can get 10 stacks at the end of his turn. So okay, we know how he gets it. How do we remove it from him? Well, that's simple. All we got to do is just kill the small bugs. Every time we kill a small bug, the big bug will lose 1 stack. That's it. But can we remove the stacks from the small bugs if we didn't manage to reduce all the stacks before the start of the big bug's turn? There is no way. All we got to do is just kill the small bugs or weakness break them to delay their action. So this means we want to kill small bugs the whole time to reduce the stacks of the big bug so it doesn't distribute it to the small bugs. So how do we get these small bugs to be on the field? Well, that's simple. Every time we attack the big bug, a small bug will spawn. As easy as that. For in this phase, in the first phase, he will spawn 1 bug at a time. In the second phase, he will spawn 2 bugs at a time, where one of the spawned bugs can be these exploding bugs. Okay, so we know we want to kill small bugs to reduce the stacks of the big bug. And the other reason why we want to kill the small bugs is that every time we kill a small bug, all the enemies get a bit of damage, debuff, which means they get increased damage. But the main reason why I want to kill the small bugs, apart from reducing the big bugs his stacks, is that every time we kill a small bug, the big bug will take a bit of damage, but also its toughness will be reduced. And every small bug its death will reduce the big bug's toughness by around 25%. So killing 4 small bugs means that we would have reduced the big bug's toughness by 1, since he has 3 at the start of the battle. And it is especially helpful in this case since, as you can see, the big bug's toughness is locked, which happens in his second phase. So the only way for us to reduce his toughness now is by killing the small bugs. And weakness breaking the big bug's toughness is what the whole Apocalyptic Shadow is about, since if he is weakness broken, he will take increased damage, allowing us to kill him in one go before he regains his toughness. That's the aim. And when we weakness break the big bug, he will like explode and deal a big chunk of damage to all the small bugs and reduce their toughness at the same time, but in most cases he just kills all the small bugs when he's weakness broken. So, all in all, the takeaway is you want to consistently kill the small bugs with AoE or blast attacks to reduce the big bug his stacks and reduce his toughness bar at the same time. And now we can go to the big wolf. We can start anywhere with the explanation, but let's start with this. We want to kill as many small wolves as possible to gain these stacks for our allies. Why do we want to gain these stacks? Well, it is to prepare us for this one-on-one fight against the big wolf. Okay, so we know we want to get these stacks. How do we get it then? Well, every time we kill a small wolf, we get 1 stack, as easy as that. But at the same time, all the wolves will gain these stacks. And these stacks are shared among all the wolves. This is mostly just used for the big wolf. These stacks for the small wolves don't do anything. Okay, so we know these stacks for us help us for the one-on-one fight against the big wolf. But why does the big wolf then get these other kind of stacks? Well, if he has 5 stacks, this big wolf, then we will go to the one-on-one fight against the big wolf. So that's why these stacks for the big wolf exist. And how do they get these stacks? Well, like we said, every time we kill a small wolf, he gets a stack. Or whenever any enemy attacks you, then they would also get a stack. So 2 ways for them to gain these stacks. Okay, so if he has max stacks, we go to the 1v1 fight against the big wolf. And you can choose which ally you want in this 1v1 fight, Topaz. But what happens in the solo fight? First of all, we get 2 skill points at the start of the fight. And I entered this fight with 1 skill point, so I got these 2 skill points for free. What else happens when we enter this solo fight? Well, as you might have noticed, the chosen allies, its HP gets increased by quite a lot, and we get increased attack and some increased damage dealt and increased break effect. But the most interesting thing is that every time we attack the big wolf, we heal. And this healing is based on how many of these stacks we have. Not only we heal when we attack the big wolf, based on how many of these stacks we have, but also we have increased toughness reduction. So now you know why we want to kill as many small wolves as possible before we enter this solo fight. Since the more stacks we have, the more toughness will reduce of the big wolf, which is helpful since this is the only big opportunity for us to reduce his toughness. Since we see, oh, his toughness is unlocked. Because normally, when we're not in a solo fight against him, his toughness is locked. And this is why you want to choose an ally in this solo fight who does the most amount of attacks. And that's why I chose Topaz in this case, because she also has non-P with her. So we get this increased toughness reduction with Topaz attacks, and also with non-P its attacks. Or you can just ignore all of that and just go for Bootil and stretch his toughness that way. Okay then, when you weakness break him, the fight is over, or when he has 0 stacks. And how does he lose these stacks? Well, after every turn of his. But in the second phase, so let's assume this is the second phase, so 1 red dot less here, then 2 actions in 1 turn. So he will see Uhu. That also counts as just losing 1 stack lost. So that means in the second phase, it will be more difficult to survive. So that's why having a character who does many attacks is important, because so you can heal as many times as possible with every attack you do. Yes, we are way tankier, but still. Okay, so we have or weakness broken him in this single fight, or his stacks got reduced to 0 because he has exhausted his turns. What happens? Well, we got to start the whole process again. He starts with 0 stacks here then, and we also start without any of these stacks. So we got to kill the small wolf again and build up these stacks. So our main objective in this note is kill as many small wolves as possible before the solo fight. But every time we kill a small wolf, the big wolf also loses a bit of HP and a bit of toughness. And that is like around 9% toughness if you round it up, which is not that much, but still appreciated. And also one thing to keep in mind is that in the second phase against the big wolf, at the start of his turn, he will kill all the small wolves. So if this small wolf had, let's say, a little bit of HP and the big wolf, his turn starts, then he would kill all the small wolves and we won't get any stacks for that. So keep that in the back of your mind. In the phase 2, don't waste skill points or ultimates on small wolves when you know that you cannot kill them before the start of the big wolf his turn, because he will kill those small wolves. And I want you to remember this though. You can play with Hyacinth in this Apocalyptic Shadow, since she is expected to release around the 21st of May and the last day of this Apocalyptic Shadow is on the 25th of May. So you got a couple of days to play with her. But if you're like, I'm not sure whether I want to summon for highest scene or not, because I want to know who the upcoming characters are for 3.4, well, on the 6th of May, around that time, the 3.4 drip marketing is to be expected, where they will potentially drip market the Fate Collab characters, since 3.4 is expected to be in the third quarter of 2025, when the collab is to be expected. But you can of course be like, I don't know whether I want someone for Hyacin or not, because I want to see how our kit is, or Safer for Cypher. Well, on the 9th of May, the 3.3 drip marketing is to be expected, where they reveal their kits and upcoming events. And of course, you can also play with Anaxa, since he will release on the 30th of April. So basically my point is, and I will always say this, don't stress, you got lots of time to clear this Apocalyptic Shadow, just do what's the most fun for you. We got many events in between until the end of Apocalyptic Shadow, which will give many rewards here and there, helping you in building your characters up. So don't stress, I thank you for paying attention and see you the next time. Bye.